Welcome to this session on AI beyond the hype, the goal of which is to demystify the application of Gen AI by discussing with companies who are delivering now to their clients measurable, tangible benefits. We'll also use the opportunity in what should be no more than 30 minutes to get their views on AI platforms vying for market dominance, which is taking up the vast majority of the media's attention currently. But before all that, an introduction to Scale Up Group, where I'm the founder and executive chairman. So this is the only plug of this session. I founded it some years ago. I've been, successful tech entrepreneur myself, 20-year overnight success. We've floated on the junior London stock market and then up to the main one. And then very successfully exited to a US NASDAQ listed business. That was some time ago, and we did hit the dizzy heights of $1 billion valuation at one stage, which I never believed, I should say. So we didn't quite sell for that, but nevertheless, it was a welcome outcome for my investors and myself. Since then, I've been chairing, investing in multiple tech businesses, and that formed Scale Up Group with now 30 plus of us, of like-minded people, helping tech companies to grow. I think that's the right point for me to stop the plug, and instead now welcome and thank Martin Neale of ICS for Martin being willing to share your experiences from the front line. By way of background, Martin and I had a conversation only a few days ago when he's entered for the Enterprise Awards, which takes place next month. And I must say, as a result of that, I thought, Martin, you had a lot to say to this audience today about what you're doing in real terms with AI. So a very warm welcome. So if you could just, Martin, kindly tell us who you are, your background, and thirdly, what your business does, please.
Fantastic. Happy to do that. And thanks, John. It's very pleased to be interviewed by someone of your standing, having achieved so much in the sector. Yes, a personal background is I have been involved in effectively innovation technology, bringing innovation technology to market for really all of my working career. Mostly working quite closely with Microsoft at the beginning of technology lifecycle, usually before it's commercially viable, and then working through that cycle. And AI for me was a little different in that, I was so excited by the opportunity of AI back in 2016, where we first started to engage in it. I essentially set up a business, ICS.AI, that was focused exclusively on commercializing and fulfilling the opportunity of AI, and have really been doing that ever since. We decided very early on, almost as we formed, that we were going to do that in the public sector. The reason for that was, firstly, if you're going to change the world with technology, then why not start with people whose role is helping others? But also more practically, as a sector, they have unique requirements to engage at population level with patients or service users or residents, and they need to do that at the lowest cost point. So that makes them ideal as a market to consume AI. So yeah, we've set the business up, and it's been just an incredible journey, and delighted to be able to talk to you about it, John.
You pretty much have bootstrapped the business, haven't you, Martin?
I bootstrapped the business, and to the great delight of my wife, I bootstrapped the business with my pension. So I'm a 55-year-old. I was 55-year-old when I started the business. Cashed my pension in to set up an AI company in 9 years ago now, when it was very nascent. So, yeah, I mean, that's putting your money where your mouth is for sure.
Definitely is. I got away with it by not actually revealing how much risk I'd taken on early days. It's when our credit was starting to get refused all over the place. I think my then wife started to twig. We were living on the edge. But you're smiling, Martin. So clearly, that willingness to take extreme risks is justified now. And you did tell me just before we started the recording that you had some particularly good news as of yesterday, I think. So diving straight into, how your clients are using AI, perhaps you want to expand on that.
Yeah, so our journey has taken us from essentially what you could regard as trivial AI use cases, right the way through to use cases that are completely transforming organizations. And the organization that we worked with first on that journey was Derby City Council, who we've been engaged with now for getting on for 3 years. The first work we did with them was setting up the country's first voice phone platform, so that you can ring Derby City Council and speak to them on any subject of the 1,200 odd things that they do via their phone AI. It's our platform that we've worked with them, and we've since implemented in other places. What was exciting yesterday was we've been engaged with them on a big transformation program based on the success of what we did on that original platform, which is moving the whole thing across to Gen AI. So the previous version was based on NLP technology. The new version, which went live yesterday, is entirely rewritten to take advantage of Gen AI. And the really exciting news is that we've seen a fall in calls to their reception. And the calls being transferred into reception is a really important indicator, because essentially it acts as a dumping ground. If the AI can't understand it, then the default position is, rather than transfer it to the 40 or 50 departments that it should be transferring, if it can't deal with them, then it does it to reception. So we saw a 90% fall in calls to reception yesterday.
Wow.
And what we saw was an overall an overall deflection figure. So the deflection figure is the number of calls that people made with the attempt to speak to a human, presumably. I don't think they've started calling yet, just to speak to our bot. And the number of them that were then transferred. And so that was a 60% deflection rate. So 60% of all calls that went in. Now, our previous platform had been achieving about 35 to 40%. So to jump up to 60% on the new platform, basically on day one, is a hell of an achievement. So yeah, we're super proud of that. We have processed so far at Derby nearly 750,000 phone calls, over 2 million questions. So we are processing, somewhere between 300 and 1,000 a day, depending upon, what time of week, day, year it is.
These are very impressive figures in a sometimes quite stressful situations, aren't they? Because local authority services touch so much of the population. Could you just give us a sense of the type of questions which are now being successfully handled by your application?
Yeah, so you can basically speak to the AI about anything that concerns you that is in any way related to council function. So I was doing some frivolous tests myself to see if I could catch it out. And so part of what I was doing was saying, okay, me and my friends have bought and renovated a World War II tank, and we want to park it in one of your central parks, please. And it politely told me that I couldn't just park my tank in a Derby park. There was a need for it. I also called up pretending to be incapable of phrasing a question, being incoherent, to see how it would handle me, and it handled me very sensitively. So we deal with a broad spectrum of people. I was speaking to it about a dispute with my neighbour, giving it very little information about what the problem was, and it sort of teased out of me that that I'd had a row, and it advised me how best to avoid rows, and if I was involved with one, how to, and if all of that doesn't work, then here's the next step. So the capabilities, the multi-turn capabilities grounded on that content are absolutely amazing.
That's seriously impressive. I hadn't realized you could cover such a wide range of subjects in a very unstructured way. I mean, that must be the ultimate test of any AI application.
Yeah, I mean, councils are just about as hard as it gets, I think, because of just the vast range of different things that they deal with.
Yes.
Anything that's new in society ends up being dumped on the doorstep of the council to deal out. Be it immigration, or be it cost of living rises, or whatever it is, in one form or another, it ends up at the council as being yet another thing they have to do. So that's a huge range, and in that are some very, very sensitive areas, particularly social care. So one of the additions on our new platform is specific capabilities around social care. So there's now a concierge capability that will redirect people into a different social care AI that has different parameters in terms of how it behaves and what it can do. And in addition to that, we've also introduced true multilingual capabilities. So you can now talk to it in, I think we've got it set up for 16 languages currently.
Wow.
But it's able to, we're able to add more languages, as we wish, essentially.
This is seriously impressive.
It is, one of my ambitions in this has always been something that I could be proud of the experience of, and I think we've reached the point where the AI, whilst we don't try to make it appear and behave as if it's a human, because it would be unethical to pretend an AI is a human. The quality of the conversation and the back and forth and so on is really on a par with most interactions, and is considerably in excess of the capabilities of most people who are dealing in those roles, because it's trained in over 1,200 different things. I mean, how many people are going to know about everything from how do I renew my zoo license through to where can I park my tank?
Yeah. So this is all audio, is it, typically? Not text?
This is audio. This is on the phone. It's the same AI. So it's an Omni AI. So if you go onto their website, then you'll be greeted with an AI. If you email them, you'll be greeted with the same AI. So we have it set up so that it responds in a way that's appropriate to the channel. So it knows about different channels and will structure things in an appropriate way. But it's the same AI.
So it can read emails?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it will read them, it will categorize them, and it will take appropriate actions.
Very, very good. One of my clients actually told me that was perceived email handling as one of the most difficult areas for contact centers. So if you've cracked that, that's tremendous. I mean, that's been quite a journey, I'm thinking here, to develop such a flexible, responsive application as you've graphically described. I mean, how long has it taken for this application to be developed?
So the app essentially is it's a rewrite of, for large parts of, the app platform that's been in development for 5 or 6 years, essentially.
Right.
So the reason,
by yourselves?
by ourselves,
Yeah.
yes. So we work closely with Microsoft on, we basically seek to ensure that we're not, that if something exists that can be used effectively by the hypervendor, then we will use it rather than rewrite it.
Yeah.
So all of the development has been on things essentially that the hypervendor doesn't do. And a lot of that is around localization, it's around ethics, it's around security. There's lots that's associated with it. So this particular project was part of a £7 million transformation project that we started with Derby a year and a half ago. This is the end of phase one. In fact, phase one ends on Monday when we deliver their internal version of that. It's an AI called Perry, and Perry is their staff co-pilot. So all members of Derby staff, all 2,700 of them, will have access to Perry. And Perry is able to essentially, you can think of it like a sort of internal chat GPT, but it also has other capabilities. So it's pre-trained in their role, grounded on their content. Social workers can use it to record interactions with residents, and it will automatically create transcriptions and content and so on. So that's the first stage, phase one of this project. Phase two is going just deeper into some of these use cases. So doing deeper activities, automating things like send, which people out there might have heard of, which is a sort of complex area for kids to get additional help in education. And is involved council in lots of work. So that's a very workflowy based system. So yeah, that's a year and a half. We're organising a session with Derby in the beginning of July, which will be attended by all the senior directors at Derby, a live webinar where we will be talking through the savings to date, which are in the sort of £6 to £8 million range for year one.
It's an annual saving, right?
Yeah. Year two saving, we are targeting at, I believe it's 11 million in year two. So,
on that point, Martin, how does that saving manifest itself? I know we touched upon this when we spoke recently, and to widen that question, clearly there's a fear, some sort of scare stories emanating from very authoritative sources about the impact Gen AI could have on working population. So if you could articulate perhaps the impact you think it's going to have on Derby especially, but also your thoughts on the wider impact it may have on working population, please.
Yeah, I think in Derby's case, I don't believe they've had any mandatory redundancies. Their staff savings have come from roles not being refilled. So we target, from a business case perspective, an annual productivity improvement of just 5%, and their annual staff churn is 13.9%. A lot of those roles are things that they can't fill because they just can't recruit into them. So in the case of local government, you actually have the opposite problem, which is the demands for staff are set to grow and grow and grow based on the need. So the savings come from, they come in part from not filling those roles. They come in part from diverting people into more suitable services that are less expensive for the council to deliver, by deflecting things that they don't need to be dealing with directly. So it's a combination of those sorts of things, as well as some specific high value use cases. So send, as an example, is something that costs the councils millions and millions. More generally, all previous innovative, disruptive technologies have operated on the basis of increasing the size of the pie. So, if you look at the automotive sector and the impact of robots on it, which were introduced in the 70s, and look at the number of people employed in the automotive sector now, it's substantially larger than it was at that point. If you look at the retail sector from the 2000s, when Amazon and the like were making themselves felt, it's the same story. So, just because it's always happened every time for the last few hundred years before doesn't obviously mean it's going to happen again. And AI is obviously very different and much more capable. But I don't see any reason why that maxim shouldn't hold true. That you make things easier for people to consume, they consume more of them, and so on.
And especially in local authorities cases that have been squeezed from financing perspective.
They have no choice. They have absolutely no choice. The costs are rising. Social care costs rise at the rate of 5% per year. And council budgets have been cut by 30% in real terms over the last 10 or 15 years. Where are you going to go?
And demand is increasing, aging population.
Yeah.
So you slightly moving away from that wider topic, which is, I think, very pertinent to us all. But you referenced Microsoft a couple of times. Are you specializing in the Microsoft AI platform?
Doing things for the first time ever anywhere is an incredibly difficult and risky business. So, as a technology supplier, we want to limit the options of things not working. And one of the benefits of working with Microsoft in the Derby project was that they actually fielded, they call them the global black belt team. So these are global specialists in AI who worked alongside us in the development of this platform. Microsoft's complete ecosystem, you can at least have some confidence that within their ecosystem, they've at least made sure that their bits all work together. So for us, that's one less thing to worry about. If we were to work with just, this vendor for that bit, this vendor for that bit, there's no responsibility. That said, we've engineered the platform so that it is entirely independent of back-end large language model. So, if someone wants to use DeepSeek or, they want to use Claude, then we can. And indeed, again, Microsoft's Azure strategy is to have all of the major LLM vendors as part of the Azure platform. So we have worked closely with Microsoft, but to be honest, that's a reflection of the leadership position they've taken. I think the tools, the personnel, all of the rest of it, they've kind of made this possible.
How many people do you think have been working on this project over the years?
What, at Microsoft?
At your application of it.
Oh, my application. So this project, so last week's testing of the platform there were 75 people just testing it to make sure that the PTU performed. We've had a team of around 20 or so working on this for nearly 18 months now. Derby's team is considerably bigger. So Darby's team are permanently on it, 20 to 30, I would guess. So yeah,
So it's quite a project management challenge in its own right, isn't it?
yeah, 9 different work streams
Right.
across, yeah, huge undertaking. And and seeing it all go live yesterday, seeing
Yeah.
us achieve the level of deflection that we had promised
Yes.
exactly,
Yes.
and seeing the consumption of the underlying large language model fit inside what we had said would be the capacity rate was that was a squeaky moment.
Fantastic. Yeah.
That was
Fantastic.
amazing.
Great story. And given the impact you're making, I mean, those numbers of resources isn't extreme, is it? I'm sure there's Derby can rationalize the cost of development against those savings. Is it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, Derby's had a year one saving. So their ROI is massive, and obviously year two costs will fall. And for our other customers, so we already have 3 other customers who have committed at the same scale that Derby have, that we are with at various stages of starting their projects.
It
And
must be a poster child for local government, central government, and Microsoft.
yeah. So having a mention in Parliament, when was it? Friday, Monday this week. Yes. So yeah, we were called out in Houses of Commons with on the basis of of what we've been achieving. So the government has been very proactive in driving the use of AI as a means of reducing costs and improving service. It's definitely a part of their agenda, and I think, to be honest, it's been fairly instrumental in allowing organisations like Derby feel as if they're in something of a safe space to take this risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without that national support, without that, that sense that this is the direction, there's no way that a lot of these organisations, certainly Derby, would have taken that risk.
It's a sort of high profile project that can either make you or break you, I guess. Everyone, now that's successful, I bet you have an awful lot of fellow travelers, whereas if you weren't, then there'd be an awful lot of, oh, we told you so types. But we move on from that philosophical point. Um, we're almost come to a close of it. And this is so impressive to hear real benefits in a sometimes stressful environment, achieving so much relatively quickly, frankly. But on a more kind of general level, thinking about our audience, there was an FT article not that long ago which said there's 4 categories of where AI should or should not be applied. And I wouldn't mind your thoughts on that. The 4 being the complexity of the application, the second one being the frequency of it, the third, the interconnectability, and number 4, which I can certainly relate to, the cost of getting it wrong, before assessing whether or not you tackle sort of projects with AI. So just repeat: complexity, frequency, interconnectability, and the cost of getting it wrong. Any reflections on those with your own experience?
Yeah, I think complexity takes on a completely different perspective in the AI world. What you would have previously regarded as complex is now becomes trivial, and what you wouldn't have even thought of as complex is it now becomes complex, right? So I think those sorts of terms, you've got to be clear on what we're talking about. So that's the first dimension. You literally have a reasoning model that can genuinely, well, I say genuinely, but as far as all measures are concerned, come to the right conclusion, about a given set of facts. So you present it with information, it will understand it and behave in a way that you would expect it to, which you've never had before. So, you have essentially a reasoning engine that you can pass things to, and that just utterly changes everything. I think the other thing is that what you couldn't do a week ago in AI, you can do this week. And I use AI. I am an AI native. I'm AI first. I spend probably 20 to 30% of my day, every day, engaged with AI. I brainstorm strategies. I check. I use it constantly, and I use the three different main platforms, which is Gemini, Claude, and OpenAI. And what I see is, I'll come to it. On one occasion, I was doing something on Friday, and when I started it on Monday, couldn't do it on Friday, did it on Monday. So that is the rate of change. It's extraordinary. You couldn't create complex graphics with accurate text; it would make all sorts of mumbo jumbo. Now it can. There are all of these things that you just couldn't do, and I think that's the one thing I like to try and get across to people, is that they have a perception of, right, okay, I get what AI is, and I get that it hallucinates and it's this and it's that. Like those things are set in stasis, and they're just not. And that will continue to accelerate. So I think those perceptions are very much of the moment when they were written.
Quite. What about this cost of getting it wrong criteria? Is that a factor now, do you think? I mean, you touched a couple of times on risk.
That's a really good point. So because of the nature of what you can do, you then start to get exposed to the kind of things that you just wouldn't have even conceived doing. So a part of that is one of the things that we do in social care, is we do social care assessments using AI.
Yeah.
So it will have a conversation with you, and it will then make a recommendation as to whether you need social care or not. So the question there is that's obviously a level of risk that carries quite a high downside if it gets it wrong.
Yeah.
So we are very, very careful that anything that falls into the category of impacting people's lives goes through a particular form of compliance, which means that there's a human in the loop. I think the final thing to say on that is that if the alternative is that these things don't happen at all, then you need a different set of criteria to judge what the downside of it is. If you're comparing it to, okay, absolutely no one's going to get this, whereas proportion is, then I think a more mature view on it. But from our perspective, we don't make those decisions. Our clients make those decisions. We make it clear to them where we've kind of reached a step, and seek their guidance on it.
Fantastic. Martin, we've come to the end of a fascinating conversation, and the real world of AI beyond the hype you've exemplified in spades. Top marks to you. The timing of it when you went live yesterday, I think, is impeccable. I'm going to pretend I knew all about that, but I can't think I did. And many congratulations, and may you prosper from your great success in the future and your willingness to take risks at an age when some people about to hang up their boots. So very, very well done. And thanks again, Martin Neale of ICS.AI. Thank you.
And pleasure talking to you, John. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.